So someone very close to me. Actually, I'll name him. I were talking. He's one of the core four partners. Um, and we had a rather emotional disagreement, if you will, a few days back, a few months back. And I was pretty upset when that happened because he disagreed very strongly.
Philosophically, what you're saying is very important in terms of developing a culture that allows disagreement, allows different ideas to percolate. Uh, what I'm, well, you mentioned something in passing, but didn't go into detail in it. The idea of toxins, inhibitors, and nourishers. Uh, that seems to be one of the strategies that you use to build that culture. So why don't you tell us more about what
So
that is?
this is basically coming from this book, Progress Principle,
Okay.
which used to be, probably is, perhaps the most recommended book by one of my advisor at Stanford, Bob Sutton, and he's an organizational behavior guru. Super impressive work. Um,
Why is
I
your
think
advisor at
friction.
Stanford organization behavior guru? Were you not in engineering or? Uh,
I was in management science and engineering. I'm the generation that was created to bridge the gap between managers and engineers.
oh, okay. I did
I'm
not know
so
that.
sorry to disappoint you. I'm not a full engineer, am I?
नजर आता है.
Okay. I hope you mean that in a good way.
I'm just
Um,
kidding.
yeah. So the book, and this is interesting, right? So the book actually talks about work is meaning, and as long as people are making progress, people are happy. But it also talks about this concept of work life and inner work life.
Mhm.
So the author says that the work life, the meetings you see people going into, the code they write, the presentations they give, all the work that you see them doing is sort of like comparable to the tip of the iceberg.
Hmm.
And the part of the iceberg that you don't see, which is I think nine times more, is inner work life. Inner work life are the thoughts, the emotions, the motivations with which you come to work. And so inner work life, if the thoughts, emotions, etc., are going down, then work also suffers, right? So she says that inner work life is a function of, let's really simplify it, say two things: toxins and nourishers. Toxins are acts of disrespect, disregard for emotion, discouragement by a fellow colleague. And we've all experienced that. If you've worked for a few years, you've received a toxin from someone, intentionally, unintentionally, and there's a severity of a toxin. And so when you experience a very strong toxin, you may be at work, but mentally you're disengaged. You can't wait to get out of there,
Hmm.
right? And so this is the difference for me between an engaged and when we used to, before COVID, we used to go to work. We're all hybrid now, perhaps, but uh, the way I thought about it was, and nourish is the complete opposite of a toxin, right? It's the act of encouragement. It's words of encouragement, regard for emotion. It's the respect that someone gives you. Hey Ali, others saying, "Hey Ali, man, did a great job." And at all hands, if he says that, and he talks about a particular project and how you did a particular something, you're engaged. Now, driving to work and even showering, you're thinking about how to optimize that even better. So an ideal company wants to dial up for engaged employees and dial down for disengagement, right? The
Hmm.
only way to do that is to actually then give them a place where they can talk about toxins, or at least the language. That, hey, I got a toxin, and we use this, by the way. So
Okay.
I've used it with my team. Like, oh, man, that was a bit of a toxin for me, right? So you make people comfortable. Um,
How did you do it? Like, did you actually have like a training on, okay, this is we're going to start using this language, and you guys are going to take it seriously rather than start treating it like a joke? How did that
so
conversation happen?
we have a homebrewed solution,
Okay.
but in addition to that, I started using it as a language, and then yes, you train a few people around you, and then they start using that language with their people,
Okay.
and so then it starts spreading.
So kind of
Um,
viral outreach, let it just go through the system, but
organic outreach, if you
model it,
will.
model it and have it have it go. Have it
Use
go.
the language in all hands or to and you need this is the sort of thing you need to say again and again and again, right?
Mhm,
uh, but and of course I well I would intentionally use it at an all hands just for fun and just to get the concept across that hey, we're comfortable saying that hey, I got a toxin here, and
mhm,
but then it spreads. But just by having a framework, you've given people a toolkit
mhm.
uh, to be able to talk about something that is causing disengagement.
Right.
Um, or at the same time, like I became very conscious. I didn't want anyone to tell me I gave them a toxin. So in my language, I'd say, "Oh, this is not meant to be a toxin," but da 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 da. Right. So uh, it goes both ways. It goes for leaders and it goes for everyone at the company. Um, is, is this what you wanted me to expand on, or?
This is useful. This is useful. This is interesting. So okay, so that language, kind of like use of that language, that was one of the things, and I think that's that. And so the reason I'm going down this track a bit more, there's some research by Google in what makes a high performing team, and the number one characteristic of it is psychological safety. You have psychological safety. That means you can take risks, and you can you're not going to be afraid to speak up. You're not going to be afraid to keep things to call something that you think is horribly wrong, and it's not. And then you're not going to be afraid to share your ideas and act on your ideas. So, and this is research by Google and done and if you search for it, you can very easily find it. So, so it's definitely something that is very important to establish, especially for a startup, like a smaller company, rather than kind of like the Fortune 500s, because
Yeah, even there, right? What I'm claiming is that the people at the core leave that psychological safety. They lose it. Sorry, not leave. They lose that psychological safety, so they're not even talking to one another.
yeah,
They're
no,
not
no,
even afraid that
I
we
agree.
gotta do this. So.
But the thing is that it is a lot easier to establish it in a smaller company, and that can be a superpower, kind of like a Goliath killer for a smaller company. So that's why it's so important, so much more important for the.
Balancing that even is hard. Like I feel like if people misuse that, so you always have to. You can disagree, but I think the respect always has to be there. That oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Mhm,
So this is what I've asked from my team, right? So someone very close to me. Actually, I'll name him Vase. Vase and I were talking. Right? He's one of the core four partners at Tintash.
mhm,
Um, and we had a rather emotional disagreement, if you will, a few days back, a few months back, and I was pretty upset when that happened because he disagreed very strongly, and I just calmed down. I even got a little teary eyed. I'll be very vulnerable and share it all.
mhm,
And we resolved it, and he apologized, and you know whatever was going on with him. So it's typically like stuff is going on around you in family, at work, or you're having a bad day. The
mhm,
entire sympathetic, parasympathetic, right? Bad balance. Um, and so the stuff like that will happen. But a few days passed by, and I realized that again that thing. If this is someone who's like a friend for me or a very close friend at work,
mhm,
and if he can't passionately disagree with me,
mhm,
and when that happens, it's not fun to
mhm.
be in that tornado, right? If you will, I've been reading your book, uh, but I think that's something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
That if you can disagree, and then what I guess the one thing I asked for was that as we all grow older, we all get more experienced, and I perhaps this is what happens at larger companies, perhaps not, but I feel like our lens shifts.
Mhm,
The circle that we're controlling at a company is different from what another person may be controlling, and so our perspective is different, and we
mhm,
feel more and more strongly about I've got the right opinion.
mhm,
So if I feel very strongly about something, I should always have the humility to think that hey, maybe I'm wrong.
mhm.
So both Vase and I, but I have to give him this first, right?
Yeah.
I have to have the humility that might feel very strongly, given my lens, given my exposure, that it's something should be done in an X way, right? A task or a process.
Hmm.
Given his exposure, given his lens, given what he knows and part of the or what he knows of the big picture, he will feel very strongly about his approach.
Yeah.
And so, as long as we both have the humility that okay, I might be wrong, let's figure this out. I But it's hard to do it in practice. Yeah, I mean, you will have those strong
No,
disagreements.
it's obviously hard. It's definitely hard. And I think one of the other characteristics is that the onus almost always more on, well, the onus is always on the person who has more power, because they
So
can.
this is what another colleague at Tintash says. She says, "Manan, I can punch up, you can't punch down,"
Right.
and that is a super philosophy. But
It's like it's not a black and white thing, but the responsibility of the person with more power is more than the person with less power, is what I would say.
yeah, power also sort of shifts, right? So I could make a claim that there are people at Tintash. So equity is equity. I mean, we start off something, but as you go grow more and more critical to any one company, the amount of power you exercise,
Hmm.
regardless of how much financial gain you have from it. Like there are people who are, I'm sure, critical to a company. They left the company at some point, and it just wasn't the same. So I don't know. Like, do I feel more powerful than my colleagues at Intash? No.
Hmm.
Um, as I said, just because one is a leader doesn't mean that I can call the shots,
Yeah.
and then the other person is going to emotionally accept. Emotionally accepting the decision is what it's going to take for them to sort of give it, to disagree and commit to it, right? If you look at a lot of these examples of larger companies, and I was just recently at a course where I saw this happen, right? I think this was true for, I shouldn't name a company, but there was this one large company, they decided strategically we're going to do X.
Hmm.
But because their customers were making them do Y, the entire organization, despite the strategic decision at center being to do X, they went and did Y. And
Hmm.
thank God they did Y because that helped them grow.
Hmm.
Uh, so people enjoy a certain influence and power in an organization. There's a certain momentum to things that's going on. And again, the nerd in me is very interested in all of this. The person who is more senior or more in that traditional sense of power has a responsibility to set the culture a certain way.
Hmm.
But what I'm also saying at the same time is that someone like me also then needs the other person to have, to give me that space that maybe I'm right.
Yeah, that's a good.
No. So, for
Good.
example, we have this rule of that if we disagree and if two parties disagree, like level 10, we have a level 10 system, right? So if Murad and I disagree about something and he feels 10 out of 10 strong about it and I feel 10 out of 10 strong about it, the way we will resolve it is I will give in because
Okay.
someone has to make that decision then, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but you can't abuse that system either. So
Yeah.
I know I then other, like, was say there is Fazan.
Hmm.
And so with Fazan, we created this system and then I used it once or twice. And he's like, Manan, you're really using it very frequently. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, and I haven't used it since.
Okay.
Uh,
Which is
so
which is fair, right? Like it's that's a fair call out, and that's a good cultural existence, right? That is
I,
psychological.
I, I think the one thing I will share with you is this language that I just picked up from our therapist. I'm saying my therapist, but she's also our therapist at Tintash.
Different.
She showed me how with well, I was trying to fix my relationship with someone, and she's like, use the language that part of me feels this way,
Mhm.
and then part of me feels. But what I realized was that in any given disagreement, even I have parts. So we were in
Mhm.
a negotiation recently, and
Right.
Wase and I and Fazan were discussing, and they're like, okay, should we go X way or should we go Y way? And I was like, I feel very strongly that I should do X. And Vas is like, calm down, we need to go through the process. Then I realize, okay, part of me, the loudest part of me, feels like going X way. But if Vas and Fazan are saying Y,
Mhm.
part of me also agrees with that. there's another part of me that's taking something that Vase had said earlier and saying, okay, let's take the time to do this properly. Let's get all the data. So with any major decision, I feel like we may end up listening to our loudest part. But if we sit, there are always other parts which are agreeing with the other party too. And
Hmm.
I think by just using this language and voicing it loud like that, like part of me sees things from your angle and agrees with you.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm starting to sound like a therapist myself now, but it really helps. Yeah, it really helps the other person. And I would enjoy that language if someone was to disagree with me too, because I'd be like, okay, I've been hurt, and they see why I'm struggling with this too.
So
So
we were talking about book recommendations earlier. I actually have a very good book recommendation for you. I don't know if you've read it yet, but Difficult Conversations. Uh, that actually does a very good job uh, in breaking down conversations for
okay,
actually have that. So definitely something that I would recommend checking out. Uh,
I'll definitely check it out. I have it on Audible. Have you gone through Chris Voss's Chris Voss? Never split the difference. Like I feel like it's not very
Very good.
appropriate named, but
Yeah, I have.
I really like his approach to things. Um, Not that I'm gonna try my late night radio DJ voice here, but
We talked about any other things that you're doing at Tintash. Kind of like we talked about how the leadership has to model from the
you wanted
top.
to talk about communities. We can talk
Yes,
about that for a bit.
I did
Like,
actually want to talk about that. Why don't we actually talk about that? I think one more thing that you're doing for in terms of like building relationships outside building these communities uh, uh, outside of Tintash, right? So why don't you tell us about those?
yeah, so essentially, we had built a lead generation engine based off of Google Ads
Hmm.
that broke down when the interest rates in the US rose,
Hmm.
and the startup funding was crowded out. I think crowding out is the right term. Um, and so since then, we were figuring out what to do and how to get like a pipeline of leads built up. And as we were pivoting away from startups also towards more enterprise companies, also thanks to Vixel for all of this, right? And one of the ideas, like in one Austin trip to Arthur's farm,
Hmm.
Arthur was like, there's this concept of communities and there's this X book that you should read. And so I consumed that book. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. Then I consumed another book.
Hmm.
And they were like, okay, let's figure this out. So that's how it started. So credit to you guys. Um, uh, but what we realized was that we need to build communities for each studio's customer archetype.
Hmm.
Um, and communities you build with people.
Hmm.
And so this is one way. So you can't really find customers who are in the buying window.
Hmm.
My formula for finding work at Tintash always was find people we want to work with. Remember the litmus test? Everyone should wake up looking forward to working with the people they work with. So
Yeah.
find people you want to work with, projects that my team would like, find it challenging, like good engineers, good designers. They want good, challenging work, right? At our market rate. It was a simple formula, right?
Hmm.
Do we want to work with this person? Is the project fun? That's how we would categorize it.
Yeah.
Um, but but we didn't have the positioning statement, right? Be able to say we're amongst the best in the world to do X for Y companies, leveraging Z insights or expertise, etc. After you guys made us look through all of our experience, we created 4 studios, and then for each studio, we've created a community of customer archetypes where we build that community with them. And luckily, AI has been, you know, impacting things a lot. So we're
Hmm.
just each community is mostly about, with AI, it was evolving for the longest time so fast that everyone was trying to do something, but everyone can't do everything. So there
Hmm.
was actually enough to share around. Hey, we tried X. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work, and both of those things are equally valuable. Um, so yes, the communities became a way for me to actually go back to my old formula, like find people we want to work with. So I suddenly was building relationships by
Mhm.
adding value to the communities.
Mhm.
And so some of them, when they're in the buying window, the concept is give, give, give. So create a ton of value for those people.
Mhm.
And some of them, when they're in the buying window and if they need Tintash services, um, they know where to find us, right? They've become aware of us, and some of them come to us then. So that's the concept of building communities.
And you just launched a new community, right?
Yes, we have the Health AI Collective.
So, can you tell me more? Like, I think you've had a few talks already, right? What are the kinds of topics you're discussing in this community?
Uh, yeah, so the community, the reason behind the community is as we got more and more into the enterprise space, it was Ate's advice to find a focus.
Hmm.
And so we have a lot of work done in the health and wellness space, quite a few clients there. We do have other enterprise clients, but not a big one in the healthcare space. But
Hmm.
I just there's someone we ran into who had written a book, and you guys have partnered with him, Faisal Mushtaq, right?
Yeah,
For his TechCon.
yeah.
Uh, so, uh, so he had written the book on use cases of AI in healthcare, or
Hmm.
something like that. I may be not pronouncing or correctly recalling the name of the book. That's the talk we started with, and the idea for the community was that if we can leverage agentic AI automation
Hmm.
to help doctors and staff within hospitals and care institutions and free up their time from, say, the boring, repetitive processes or tasks
Hmm.
uh, to focus more and more on patients,
Hmm.
that would be very meaningful, right? But within this space, you have doctors with their own expertise, and then you have engineers and designers with the AI expertise.
Hmm.
So we built a community to bring these people together,
Okay.
people who are interested in healthcare and doctors who are interested in leveraging AI.
Right.
So and we wanted to talk about more and more about the boring use cases, right? So we aren't talking about replacing the radiologist here.
Okay.
It was about, okay, what is someone leveraging, using that they'd like to talk about? Hey, this is working, this isn't working. This is a great use case of AI. This is how it helps.
Do you have like some examples from your recent talks?
So we just had a talk today, which is about HEPA compliance.
Hmm.
Uh, it's HIPAA or HEPA, HEPA
HIPAA.
compliance. Sorry. HIPAA compliance. Sorry for mispronouncing that. And the guy shared how you can leverage an older LLM strictly on your own machine
Hmm.
uh, to take away personally identifying information, health information of patients
Hmm.
uh, that that you may have as a healthcare organization, where you need to share that data somewhere,
Hmm.
perhaps for whatever use case elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so he was, and how quickly you can leverage LLMs for doing that and strictly
Okay.
remain HIPAA compliant.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that was what today's talk was about. You should check it out.
I will. I will. And it's definitely like a very uh, it's a critical use case, like, and it's a security and compliance issue which just keeps on popping up now, and can be disastrous if you actually fail in it. So that's actually really, a very interesting talk. Uh, and those are the questions that I had for you in general. We're running at the end of our time box, and I wanted to hear, you've been an entrepreneur since 2008, right? You're about to, in a few years, it will be your 20 years as an entrepreneur. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs?
We crossed the 20-year mark a while back. 2020, 2004 is, I think, when we did the first sort of entrepreneurial venture of sorts. It was a
Okay.
project called Project View. And like all credit to my friend Ali, he had the vision for it. I remember sitting outside Lums and he was like, "Oh man, I don't know if we'll ever get funded for this." And I was like, "Just apply for it." Uh, and I'll work with you if you get funded. I didn't even realize what the project was.
Okay.
uh, and so he got funded, and lo and
Okay.
behold, and what he was building was uh, like what are these pollution monitors called, right? So air quality monitors. um, that's what we built. Anyhow, we deployed 50 of them, and back then in 2004 we were measuring AQI in Lahore, which, well,
Which
recently
was
has
a
become
very depressing sight, I'm imagining. And
not back then. We had very clear, beautiful fog back then. um Sorry, so what was your question? Like, what
what,
lessons?
what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs?
Hmm. Growth mindset
Okay.
and akhlaq. Akhlaq being, there's no English translation, one word for it, but it's your behavior towards the fellow creation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the best way I can define it is, how you talk to a king or a janitor is a reflection of your own personality, and shouldn't be a reflection of who they are. And be kind, always.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
you'll have the ups and downs, and building and maintaining those healthy relationships is most important. um, you do your best job, and success can come or doesn't come, shouldn't really matter, as long as, like, I think this is how I think about Tintash. As the biggest success would be if after many years we, after work, still feel like hanging out with the same people we work with.
mhm.
Is that more important, or is becoming a billion-dollar company where you don't have those friends more important? That's something I'll leave you to think about. um,
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think uh, Ate received a similar comment actually from somebody in that he somebody told him that, oh yeah, I started this Flux Seven with my college friend, and now we're starting our second venture together. And Ate and the person was like, huh, you guys started a whole company together and are still friends. I guess that's a good friendship.
and as we spoke about this, that takes a lot of work. And entrepreneurship is not a solo sport, as far as I'm concerned.
Hmm.
um, I think you need friends to lift you up when you're down. There are times when you're super excited, there are times when you're like, oh my god, doomsday. um, so having, it's a team sport.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
if the team bonds really well, then you may have that big win.
And it's an emotional roller coaster, and I mean, it is. Uh, you feel more of an emotional roller coaster with ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Because it's not in this moment, everything in your life is getting destroyed.
Yeah, and you know what they say, like, there are unknown unknowns. And
Hmm.
someone gave the example of, like, a few years into growing something, someone may go through a divorce, someone
Hmm.
may get unwell.
Hmm.
Like, that's the stuff you're planning for, but you can't plan for.
Yeah.
uh, so at least have the right people by your side.
Hmm.
I think that's perhaps the biggest lesson I can share. Do it with the right people. Start off small, carve out something small where you can work together, see if it goes well, have a conflict resolution agreement, like, this is how we'll disagree. And don't let the relationship suffer. I mean, there's enough on this to just read, look for and read and learn.
Hmm.
uh, you and Atir and Vishnu are a great example,
Hmm.
and I think that's a note we can end on.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Ali.